So for this pattern, you'll have 3 pieces. You'll be cutting 2 of the upper front, 1 of the shirt lower front, and 1 of the shirt back. Be sure to follow the grain line instructions. And I'm going to do a bit of a manipulation here to this pattern, which allows for you to create a bias cut mini dress instead. What I did was I selected 1 inch in from the bottom edge of my front pattern piece so that I could create my new side seams. You'll select whatever length that you desire, and then we're going to use this notch as a point for extending the length. This notch is indicated at the side seam, and we can assume that this is about at your waist, and this is where I create the length extension. So I just trace my shirt lower front onto my shirt back by just attaching some pattern paper and selecting whatever length you like. We're going to use that notch to represent a waist mark. From here, you're just going to continue from your waist notch to level the extension for your desired length. After I've decided on that, I'm going to fold my back piece in half so that I can cut it to be symmetrical, and then we've got to lay out our pieces to cut in fabric. Again, for your shirt upper front, you're going to cut 2 pieces on straight grain, and then for your shirt lower front and back, you're going to cut those on bias, which means it's going to be on a 45-degree grain line. After I've cut my fabric pieces, I just cut and tear on straight grain about 1.5 inches wide strip of fabric so that I can create some spaghetti straps quickly. I do them on straight grain just because they're a bit more reliable than on bias, and if you prefer on bias, you can do that as well. I want my finished strap to be about 3/8 of an inch in width. So after I've sewn this full length, I'm going to trim away the excess and then flip it right side out using a loop turner. The fun part with the spaghetti straps is you can use a contrasting fabric or just some fabric scraps you may have of the fabric you're using for this project. Next, you're going to grab your upper front pieces, and there are 3 notches that are indicated on the pattern that need to have a gathered stitch. You're going to do this 4 times, so that's 4 sections between those 3 notches, and you're going to use the longest stitch length on your machine. Be sure that you do not back tack. If you prefer to back tack at the beginning, that's fine, but we need to have our 2 loose ends at least on one end of your fabric so that we can create this gather. It's going to give you the shape for your bust. Once you've finished creating your spaghetti straps, you're going to find the notch locations for the back piece, and we're going to sandwich 2 of those strap lengths in between those upper bodice pieces. I like to make 2 separate sets of spaghetti straps. You can just do this as one continuous, or even use some slider bra hardware that makes it adjustable. If you have like extra spaghetti straps, you can always do that. And when you're sewing your 2 upper bodice pieces together, make sure that you are following along the curve of that neckline. I also highly recommend that when you get to those points where you're sandwiching those spaghetti straps, that you do a bit of a back tack and a pivot. It's very important to reinforce those areas because there are high stress points on this dress. Make sure that you are following that curve because it's going to represent the area near your underarm, and it has a bit of a curve in it, which, just for future reference, and anytime you are sewing curved seams, you're going to want to clip them to release that curve before you flip it right side out. Also, when you've sewn corners, you're going to want to clip that about 1/16 of an inch to that pointed area. I was Bad Girls Club and forgot to remove my pins, but I like to keep them in there only in this case when I'm sewing those straps to keep them secure. And now we're going to just clip in the curve so that we can release and flip this to the right side. after you've clipped those corners, we're going to flip this right side out, and it's going to reveal your straps. Another really cool thing about this is it creates a completely clean finished self, which is the outside, and your facing or lining fabric to the right side. We're going to follow this up with an understitch, which you should always consider when doing necklines in most projects that have a lining or a facing, and that's just by turning your seam allowances towards the inside of the garment or toward the lining side, and we're going to stitch about a 1/16 of an inch from your original stitch line, and that's catching both seam allowances and your lining. When you get to those points where the spaghetti straps exit, you're not able to entirely get super close up in there, so don't force it, just go as high as possible and then continue, and you end up with this beautiful clean neckline. Be sure that when you're pressing, you do not press the area that has the gathers, but you do want to do a running stitch along the bottom just to catch and keep those two pieces together for the next step. Make sure you line up those notches from your upper shirt portion to your lower shirt portion of the front pieces, and then we're going to join that with our 1/2 inch seam allowance. Ends up this really pretty front piece of your dress so far, and we're just going to clean finish that edge at the bottom here that we just created, and I would suggest at this point to clean finish all the rest of your raw edges, and we're just going to turn back. I use a zigzag stitch to turn back the top edge of the back of the dress just because it's a little bit more reinforcing, just gives a nice detail. You can even do like an embroidered stitch on your machine. With right sides facing of the dress, you're going to place your zipper, and that's dealer's choice. You can put on wearer's right or left side. Then we're going to close up those side seams, and the pretty part about side seam zippers is you don't see it. It's going to hide under your arm. So even if you're not the best at sewing zippers, don't sweat it. You can add a hook and eye at the top of the zipper if you like, just for some extra security. And once you've finished attaching the zipper to both sides of your garment, we're going to close up the remainder of that side seam as well as the opposite side seam. The coolest part is that once you've clean finished all of your edges when you're not fully lining a garment, is you're practically done. So once we close up this other side seam edge here, you can just hem this bad boy and you are done. For the hem, I just turned back my hem edge. I used the serger to kind of act as a guideline, which is nice because you don't have to rely so much on the ruler or the seam allowance guide. And once I've finished this quick little top stitch to the bottom edge, if you'd like to make any other fit adjustments, I know that there is a bit of ease across the back of this garment. You can add a pleat, or you could take a piece of elastic and pull that to extend. Then you can use another zigzag stitch or a straight stitch, whatever you prefer, and it'll just add a little bit more security along the back edge of this dress.